Louisiana and shrimp are synonymous. When consumers today think of Louisiana shrimp, a fresh or quality frozen product comes to mind. But a century or more ago, before flash freezing, interstate highways, and air freight, Louisiana shrimp meant dried shrimp. It's high in protein, it tastes good, and it travels well. In fact, Louisiana dried shrimp was shipped throughout the United States and exported to far-flung corners of the world like South America and China. You can still find Louisiana dried shrimp selling for as much as $28 a pound in San Francisco, New York, and Vancouver. Louis Bloom is co-owner of Bloom and Bergeron Incorporated in Houma. The company, started by his grandfather, has been selling dried shrimp locally, nationally, and overseas since the early 20th century.
Drying shrimp was a way to preserve the shrimp for years and months, and God knows how long a dried shrimp will last. It's supposed to be the safest product in the world, as far as the biologist at LSU told me at one time. It has no harmful oils or resins or anything in it that get rancid or anything like that, so it stays just almost forever. When we first started, as I understand it, the first international shipment of seafood from the United States anywhere to any foreign country was my grandfather's business that he sent to China back in the early 1900s, as far as seafood was concerned. Before World War II, I'm assuming that probably most of the shrimp that my grandfather sent out of here went overseas because it was very inexpensive. During the Depression especially, we didn't have any money here. And in China, they were on the gold standard. Their money was good and ours wasn't. So we had a good product to sell to China. Plus it was preserved and it never went bad. So they could use it anytime they wanted. I'm assuming that probably most of the shrimp prior to World War II went overseas. Either went to South America, Cuba, China, or Hawaii.
In the earliest days of Louisiana's dried shrimp industry, the seafood was boiled in seawater, then placed in the open air to sun-dry. As demand for the product grew, so did the size and number of drying platforms. Once upon a time, hundreds of drying platforms were scattered along the state's coast, bayous, and throughout marshes. Houston Foray of Chauvin, a shrimper and dried shrimp processor.
Well, it started on a small scale, but then it got to a point that some of these platforms, like the one we were talking about, was probably 100,000 square feet. I mean, huge thing. They could go there and put, though there they wouldn't go about a pound, they would go about a tub all the time and everything. And some of these platforms would hold like 2,000 tubs of shrimp that they would hold, which is 105 pounds, I mean, you look at, that is some serious shrimp,
And some of those platforms were maybe a football or 2 football fields big, and they made villages around them. And the people lived out on those platforms, and they would catch oysters, and they would catch shrimp, and they would trap furs, and they would make their lives out there on those platforms.
For Norris Price Sr. of Chauvin, as well as many other processors, shrimp drying became a family affair. Small communities grew up around the platforms, so wives could be with their husbands and children with their fathers during the weeks and months the platforms were operating. In the case of the Price family, shrimp is in their blood, as Norris Sr. and his 2 now middle-aged sons run Price Seafood.
The platform had 7, 8 camps around it, and people would live in them camps. They had a whole family. When the school was closed, I'd bring my whole family. And then the vacation, they'd have some vacation around Christmas time, around Thanksgiving, I'd come pick up my family and bring them down.
By the middle of the 20th century, the platforms began to disappear. Drying shrimp indoors with forced air heaters was more efficient, reducing drying times by 60% or more. Drying machines also eliminated the spoilage platform operators experience on overcast or rainy days.
The industry changed around, I would think around 1962, 63. The price of shrimp doubled. In fact, it actually tripled. But when the price of shrimp got up to over $1, $1.50 a pound, they couldn't afford to throw it away anymore. So my dad In about 1948 or so like that, he came from New Orleans after working for Higgins Industries in New Orleans. Came and helped my grandfather in the shrimp industry. He took our old heater out the bathroom and made himself a drying machine. And he was drying shrimp in an artificial drying machine here in the shop for about 15, 20 years. And after that, he had developed a method of doing it and knew what he needed to do. He had all the tests run on it and found out it was even better than the sun-dried shrimp. So in about 1962 or 63, when the price tripled, those people said, we don't know what to do. We're going to have to really be careful about how we're drying shrimp. And so my dad says, well, I got an idea. I said, I got a drying machine that I've been drying shrimp with. He says, why don't we come down here and put a drying machine in each one of the platforms and y'all can try it out and see how y'all like it. They would pour the boiled shrimp on top of that screen, and the air would be forced through the shrimp and it would dry it. Anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, depending on time of year it was, and how much humidity or rain or whatever was going on, it could dry a batch of shrimp. So as time went on, the Board of Health would come and says, oh, we can't have y'all drying shrimp on platforms like that anymore. The birds are coming and dropping that stuff on it, and nutrients, and the raccoons are coming up here and eating the shrimp and everything like that, and it's not sanitary. Eventually, there's new laws and new safety regulations. They all started using drying machines.
More changes are now taking hold in the shrimp drying industry. Bloom & Bergeron continues to ship shrimp across the country and around the globe. But there are fewer processors supplying Lou's Bloom. Shrimp drying is a hard, labor-intensive business that doesn't attract younger generations. And the price of fuel and competition from imports have driven many shrimpers out of fishing. But some continue to persevere, such as Sandra Bouquet of Bouquet Seafood in Chauvin.
Over the years, the numbers have, I guess you can say, gone down. Used to have the old shrimpers, old trawlers, and people who used to chase sea bobs wintertime. That generation's either retired or died. Most of the shrimpers, like the ones who just wasn't really into it, I guess, and couldn't make ends meet, have gone on jobs. The majority of our shrimpers here right now are Vietnamese. It's just like it just did a complete turnaround. I would say about 3/4 of our shrimpers are Vietnamese right now. And if it wouldn't be for them, we could probably shut the place down because it wouldn't be enough to keep going. From the way when we started, it's just completely changed.